Alright, so I asked you to look at number 2. And we were talking about some like this the other day. And what I told you to do is from the very beginning to make sure that the base is the same. This is an exponent. Its base is 16. This is a log. Its base is 2. Make the bases the same. So how can you rewrite 16 so that you have the same base? You know? Right, so this is going to be 2 to the 4th. And then it's still raised to the log base 2 of 3. What do we do now? We want to set this equal to x, sure. So this is exponential. So if I want to solve an exponential, I'm going to use the inverse of it, which is a log. So I'm going to have log base 2 of x equals, swirling it around, 4 log base 2 of 3. But the thing is, I have to have these match exactly. This is log base 2 of x, and this is 4 log base 2 of x. So I want to move this 4 so that I just have log base 2. So where can it be moved to? Then this can be moved to the exponent. So now they match exactly. I have log base 2, I've got x, I've got 3 to the 4th, so therefore the answer is going to have to be 3 to the 4th, which is 81. And we don't even really put x equals. That's just the answer to this. I could even do this on my calculator. It's pretty tough to type in. You don't need to follow along, but just watch. I can do 16 raised to parentheses. I'd have to use my change of my base change under math. So I'd go to math, go up to log base. I can put in log base 2 of 3. And it can tell me what this answer is. And see how it's 81? Okay? Yeah. Well, I moved the 4 to the exponent. So I have 3 to the 4th. 3 to the 4th is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Anybody else? Question? All right, let's do one of these down here now. For this type, we want to expand these out. The only numbers we can use are 5 and 7. Okay, so we'll do this one together. This is the hardest one. So I have to think of another name for 175. And I can only use the numbers 5 and 7. So what can 175 be divided by for sure? So 175 divided by 5 is 35. So how can I rewrite the 175? 5 times 7 times 5, any order, right? It was 5 times 35. So now I have to think that I've got log base A, and this is to the 1/5 power. What can I do if it's to the 1/5 power? Where can it go? Then, back. It can go to the front. So I'm going to have 1/5 log base A of 5 times 7 times 5. This 1/5 goes to the whole thing, though. What does multiplication turn into for logs? Addition. So I'm going to have 1/5 of log base A of 5 plus log base A of 7 plus log base A of 5. And now I just look back up here and see what those are. There's my log base A of 5, so I'm going to type that in. So I'm going to have 0.7325 plus 0.8856 plus 0.7325. I get that answer, and then what am I going to have to do with it? Divided by 5, right? Because it's 1/5 of that. So now I have to do divided by 5, and I get 0.47, and let's round to the nearest 3 decimal places. 1, 2, 3. 0.470. Okay? Questions? All right. Let's do one from down in this part. These directions say to solve each equation for x, find exact solutions. So That means that we really don't want to use our calculator unless we're doing an inequality where we need to know, are we greater than or less than? We would need to use it for that. And we can use it to check our work. But I don't want you just solving everything with the calculator. All right, so something like that, what would you do first? I'm not going to do the whole problem, but somebody just kind of talk through how you would do it. Go ahead, Alex, what would you do? Right, and then what? Okay, and then what? How do you get rid of the natural log? What do you use? Exponential, you'd have to do e to the whatever, you'd have to swirl it around, okay? So you'd have to get your answer, and then you'd have to figure out, are you going to be x greater than that value or x less than? That's all I'm going to say about that one. What did I say you have to do first if you have two logs? Condense it. Keep that in mind when you get to that. On this one, what happens if you have a power to a power? What do you do with the powers? Multiply them, okay? Keep that in mind. On a problem like this, I'll get you started on the very first step only. We have to think what times what. This is a trinomial. I'm trying to factor it. Factoring the trinomial. What times what would give me 2 to the 2x? 2 to the x. So I'd have to do 2 to the x times 2 to the x. I'm going to stop there with it. You can figure out the rest. Okay, on this one, you can just do what? Just swirl it around, right? This is a very cool problem. I love this problem. You have to work from the outside in. Look at this problem, guys. You work from the outside in. So you're going to swirl, you'll get an answer. Swirl, you've got to keep swirling over and over until you get the answer. That's your hint on that one. This is probably the toughest type, I think. When we have a problem like this and we don't have like bases, we have to get like bases. So this I'm not going to change. But I have to get a like base with this. My change of base formula says that I can rewrite this as log, I want to use the same base, log base 2 of 8x over what? Log base 2 of 4. Can we evaluate this? Yeah, we can evaluate this. And then what should we do with this one after we evaluate? What can you do if you have multiplication and it's a log? You can change it into addition, right? This one, kind of tough. I'll do the first step with you to get you started. This is log, find your base, 3, swirl it around, and then come back to the exponent. What can this exponent become? Out to the front, okay? And that's all I'm going to tell you. That's your first step. All right, let's go over to the back now. Okay, I'll do the hardest one with you, number 24. All right. Now, guys, on this, look at the problem first of all, and I want you guys to tell me the way you would think of this. Is the 4 getting raised to the 1/3, or is just the e to the 1/3? Both, right? What's to the -3? Is it the e or the 4 or both? Just the e, okay? So if I'm going to do this one step at a time, this is 4 to the 1/3. Then it's going to be e to the what? -1. Divided by, and then I'm going to have 4 to the -2/3. E, what power is e going to be to? -2, good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of my negative exponents. So So I'm going to have 4 to the 1/3 over E divided by, I'm not going to get rid of my divided by yet. You can do this however you want. I'm just showing you the way I'm thinking of it. So it's divided by, so now I'm going to rewrite this as 1 over 4 to the 2/3 E to the -2, or positive 2 now. So you see what I'm doing? I didn't change the division. It's still division. But I moved this to the bottom because it was a negative exponent. And I moved this to the bottom because it was a negative exponent. Now what do we have to do with this? We have to change its multiplication, don't we? So we're going to have 4 to the 1/3 over E times 4 to the 2/3 E squared. I'll try to figure out what that would end up being for the answer. Anybody think they know? What do you do if your bases are alike? What do you do with the exponents? Add them, right? So what's 1/3 plus 2/3? 1, okay, so it's going to be 4. And then, what should I do with this? If we're dividing, what do we do with the exponents? Subtract, so what's the answer going to be? Just 4E. Okay, that's the toughest one. Just make sure you are careful with your rules as you're going through these. Okay, and then I'll do this one. Look at this one, guys, and think about how you would do the problem. And I'll just go along. There's 2 different ways to do it. Somebody tell me what you would do to start the problem. Anybody know? Kara?
I would get rid of the negative.
How would you do that?
I would write 1 over 8x cubed.
Okay, so she's saying she would write 1 over the quantity of 8x cubed. All right, what would you do now?
And I would multiply by 8x cubed.
Okay. See how I'm having to keep that in parentheses too? I have to do that. So now I'm going to just have 1 equals, what would you do now, Sarah? You do know. You have to do 64 times 8x times 8x times 8x with this way, right? So we're going to have to do 64 times 8 times 8 times 8, or times 8 cubed if you prefer. We get that number, 32768. All right, let's get somebody else involved. Audrey, what would you do now? Divide both sides by that 32768. Okay, what would you do now? Lucy, did you have an idea? Take the cube root. Now when I take the cube root of this, I'm just going to take the cube root of 1 and the cube root of that. So the cube root of 1 is just going to be 1. And then I have to take the cube root of this. So I'm just going to do math. Going to go to cube root of 32768. I'll get 32. Question? All right. Let's do one more. We'll do number 27. All right, I'll go through the whole thing. Tyson, what would you do first? Okay, divide by 2, sounds good. So we get x to the -2 is 8. Dan, what would you do now? And how would you do that? Okay. So you're saying that we should write this x to the negative 2 as 1 over x squared then, right? Okay, now what would you do, Chloe? Right, or in other words, cross multiply, same thing. So 8x squared equals 1, divide by 8. X squared equals 1/8. And so now what do we do, McKenna? Square root it. And whenever we have an equation and we're taking the square root, we have to do plus or minus. Square root of 1 is just 1. What's square root of 8 simplified to? 2 radical 2, very good. And we'll just leave it like that. I'm not even going to make, well, actually I should make you rationalize it, sorry. Changed my mind. So plus or minus radical 2 over 4. Everybody see how I'm doing that? Just multiply by radical 2. Okay, guys. So here's some examples. You guys can work together or on your own. You can start wherever you want. If you want to start at the back, you can. I will put the answers on Canvas, but don't just kind of like copy. I mean, that's really not going to help you at all. Honors Pre-Calc does something like this, but it's even more complicated. Just kind of start off the year. So we want to make sure that you can do this kind of thing, especially with the exponents here. You know, and the logs are equally as important. So make sure that you work every single problem. If you get stuck, check Canvas. But, you know, wait until you've actually worked through it and worked really hard at it. Sometimes when you struggle through something, you actually learn a lot more than if it comes easy. You know how when you have to work really hard and you're like, oh my gosh, like, and then it just dawns on you, I will never forget that again. That was so much of a pain to do. So, all right, so whatever you want to do, work together or on your own.